Yes, we're live.
It's
Yay.
always such a big happiness when we find out we're live.
Yes.
Welcome,
Yes.
everybody, to this short and sweet Zoom, or no, Facebook Live, actually, with Katarina Wallentin, Access Consciousness Facilitator, and also Art of Touch Facilitator. Hello, Katarina.
Hello. Thank you so much. We're gonna dive into some some things around touch. That's what I know coming on. So we'll see where we go.
There we go. So, for me, since we started to talk about this subject, I was thinking of a lot about this, like touch. Was touch always something that was special to you? You had some awareness on it, or it was something that revealed your interest or sparked the idea about touch?
That's a great question, actually. No, it wasn't always that. Well, it's hard to tell. Like in some ways, I think our core curiosity usually has always been there in some way or another. And it really wasn't a big thing as I grew up and as a kid, possibly. But, when I became an adult and looked at what am I in the world and what's valuable about me, all of that was really focused around my intellect, my mind, what I was interested in what I was enthusiastic about. Like I worked so much with saving the world in different ways, but mostly from the outside. I worked with the UN, I worked with Doctors Without Borders. I wrote a lot of articles. I was a journalist. I did all those things, and none of that really had any connection to touch in the way that we talk about tactile touch. On the other hand, all of it was about touching people, right? Because
Mm,
it's like touching people by what we're talking about in the world, what's happening in the world. Somebody's like touching people by what I was writing, touching people about the stories I was telling. So in one way, it was that. But the touch that really comes with our senses, like the touch, the tactile touch, or the energetic touch that we often talk about in the Art of Touch classes, that came later. And that really came when I discovered that I wasn't just a mind on legs. and, and it was just one of my, like, when you look at your life and you realize that that's like a turning point, a pivot, or a left turn, or whatever they're called. It's really when I realized that actually all this that I thought was the most important part in life, and the most important parts about me, the things I thought and that I knew and that I could express verbally, really was just a tiny part of what life and living is about and what I am about. And that it came a little bit before Access Consciousness. I had, I separated from the dad on the, I'm separated from my daughter's dad. That's how it works. And I started to explore, I got very confused about life. Like I had this plan, this master plan, and it didn't work out. Like my master plan was to, have a child with somebody who also traveled the world and saved the world through all these different organizations and, development and aid work. And then suddenly that didn't work out. It didn't go as I planned. And I had to relook at everything. I had to look at, okay, so who am I then? If this isn't where I'm heading, which direction am I going? And I started to explore that in a lot of different ways. But I was still I was still from kind of like observational point of view. Like I was learning more and more, but I didn't really see myself. I saw myself as somebody who could receive possibly that, but I never saw myself as somebody who was actually an explorer of touch. And that came when I started to come to Access Consciousness, use the Access Consciousness tools. I started to explore bars, which is a very simple hands-on. I mean, you literally touch your heads in different positions, and through that touch, you actually release thoughts, feelings, emotions, decisions, conclusions that we have. So, I mean, that's really the first body process that I experienced, and it is connected to touch. And then I started to explore a lot of the body processes, a lot of the energetic work that we also do in Access Consciousness, especially with Dane here, with the energy of synthesis of being, that the class was called at the time, and the sessions. And I was like, this is the most fascinating, most alive, awakening thing I've ever experienced. And in so many ways, it was like this, it was like going into a foreign land, but simultaneously coming home. And that was really what, for it was like, suddenly here was something that it was my language, but there was continuously more to discover. It still is. Like, this is still my, every time I facilitate something around touch or senses or energy, or I go to a class about that, or I read a book about that, or I just talk to somebody about, like right now, I get excited because there's so much more, always more to discover about me, about the world, about how we relate to each other in the world, and who we are through our senses. Like I would say that because you can get touched by any of our senses. Is we have the, like the physical touch, the tactile touch, the energetic touch, but you can get touched by looking somebody in their, like if you and I, if we were in the same room and we were standing across from each other and we were just looking into each other's eyes, if we do that for, in total presses, like for long enough, maybe 2 minutes, 1 minute even, we'll get touched by each other through our eyes. You don't necessarily need to physically, or even like your energetic bodies doesn't even need to get involved. You can get touched by just looking somebody in their eyes. You can get touched by amazingly beautiful music. You know, there's
Yeah.
so many ways that you can get touched. And for me, touch is really like, we had that as our title, what does touch mean to you? I think touch is really how coming alive. Touch is like how you're touched by life and living. It's like something like through any of your senses. And we really have like so many senses. They're not just five. Some people say then there's seven, but there's, I think last time I was reading something where we have like 32 senses. So there's a lot of them. And but so if you look at that, like it's like those senses like ping you. Hey, you're here on Earth. Look. You can like, oh, there. You can perceive the wind against your skin. This is what you're here for. You're here to experience all these different sensorial, like through your sensorial organism, your body. You're here to experience living.
Wow. You said it so beautifully and so energetically true and so poetic. I loved it. It's really what you said, exploring touch. Really, if we would see our life as all these possibilities to explore touch, we would always be present with our bodies. It would be
Mm.
impossible just to be in our mind.
Yeah, and I think that we often like it's one of the easiest and greatest ways to get present, and a lot of I think studies today also use that. Like there's a lot of meditations now that literally use that, you choose consciously to get present. Like you kind of like take a moment and really just feel that whatever you're sitting on, how that touches, right, your body. How does it feel like? What is it? And by doing that, you have to become present. Like you can't check out, you can't distract yourself with your phone, because then you won't perceive and receive the whatever your body is touching. It's all the distraction that's like we all do. Like this is taking you only in here. That's
Yeah.
really where all of that happens. And it takes you out of your body. It takes you out of this experience of the world through our senses, and through both touching and being touched. And I think that it's I think there's a longing in so
Mm.
many people, both to be touched in and I'm talking now about nurturing, healing, awakening touch, right? And there's a lot of abusive, non-kind, mean touch as well. And so obviously, when I'm talking about this, I am talking about the nurturing and the healing and the kind and the like curious awakening touch. And anyway, let me get back to that later. But so I think a lot of people long for that, but they also long for touching, exploring through touch, and somebody receiving them touching. I think that
Yeah.
sometimes we think we long more to be touched, but as much I am like, we long to touch someone and be received. That's why we love, when we touch a cat or a dog
Yeah.
and they're like so happy. And it creates this sense of, wow, I'm allowed to contribute to this living creature, and you're allowed to like your hands, they're receiving your hands, they're receiving your kindness, they're receiving your attention, and it creates the simultaneity of gifting and receiving in that moment. I think that's one of the reasons why pets contribute so much to people, why they live longer if they have a
Yeah.
pet. 'Cause they're like being received through their senses with this little living creature.
Wow. Yeah. And other thing that you said that for me also was interesting, like that energetic touch. I think that for me, what I perceive sometimes we are so energetically aware that
Mm,
we maybe make a distance from the physical touch because we think maybe it's overwhelming or that we will be overwhelming to another person if already energetically you already sense so much. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and that's also, I mean, even if we, I think there's a lot of reasons why we pull away from physical
Mhm.
touch. Like one of the reasons can be a lot of us have experienced abusive or mean, unkind, manipulative touch. So, and we don't really know how to handle that. Sometimes that came from people that we actually think are kind and well-meaning, and then sometimes they are, and they're just like bad. They don't really realize what they're doing. But anyway, if you experience that, one of the ways you handle it is sometimes to withdraw from that kind of
Mhm.
touch. Another reason why we withdraw from physical touch is what you're talking about, where if you are very aware, very extra sensitive people that we talk about today, what are they called?
Neurodivergent.
Neurodivergent. Yeah, all of
Yeah.
that comes with an increased level of awareness about
Mhm.
energies. And often, actually, the energies, like even before you come up to somebody, you will perceive their energy with their energetic bodies, which is way bigger than their physical bodies. So you'll perceive and receive that way before. And if you don't really have the tools, what to do with that or how to handle that, or you don't know if you're supposed to like receive it in a specific way, you will pull back and you'll like stand a bit away, and it'll vary also. I think that sometimes we conclude that we are a certain way, like I don't like
Mhm.
hugging, which is a conclusion instead of being continuously in the question. And sometimes you can be somebody who generally doesn't enjoy hugging that much, but then one day you really require a hug. What if
Mhm.
what if you don't have to, define yourself as a non-hugger? Well, what if you just are, you know, hugging isn't the thing I are drawn to the most, and sometimes I really require a hug. And we know that from all, like, whatever people are like, it varies. Like what you require and desire with different people, different days, different contexts, different kind of gatherings, it'll vary a lot. And I had a out of touch class, a 2-day out of touch class in Poland a while ago. And I'm so grateful for this participant. She came in and the very first morning, I was asking everybody what they wanted to get out of this class. And the class is really about having ease, joy with any kind of touch, whatever your preference is, and discover what kind of touch you actually enjoy instead of like buying it from someone else or avoiding it because of something else. So anyway, we went around the room and everybody got to talk about what they wanted to have out of this class. And she said that, look, I don't like touch very much. I'm really, I don't enjoy it at all. I'm not entirely sure why I'm here, but I'd like to have more ease with that. So I'm like, that's amazing. So cool. So that's where you are right now. And that's a perfect place to be, because that's where whatever you experienced in life, however you've handled your life and navigated yourself into this room right now to this course, that's perfect. So that's where we started. And then throughout, it's it's a very experiential exploration of touch, where we use access consciousness, of course, and then we use a lot of practices where the things you have around touch can come up in this very, it's a weird word, like safe environment, like a space where everything is allowed, nothing is judged, anything can come up, and we have the tools to handle it. So we do all these different practices, and throughout those 3 days, she participated in all of it in whatever way worked for her. Like you,
Mhm.
you don't have to do anything. So whatever way works for you. It's very, very innocent practices, really. But so in the last day, we do a practice at the end, which is really like a celebration of touch, of receiving and gifting touch. And I was watching her as she went through this like last part of the class, and she was so incredibly, incredibly happy. And she said at the very end, she said, look, I actually love touch. I just didn't know what kind of touch I enjoyed. And I think that's so true for so many people, because nobody really shows us. And now we're mainly talking about the kind of like physical, tactile, or energetic touch that we look at, like that kind of like touching something with our hands, or receiving touch that way. But the fact that we don't really get to explore it is something that we're supposed to kind of find out on our own. But there's no real forum for having like kind of like what is there, like what kind of touch exists. Like it's kind of like saying, hey, just find out, on your own. But you don't know even what you could be exploring. You don't have a guide. It's a very, very interesting area. So if you don't even know you're supposed to explore, how will you ever find out? So for a lot of these classes, what I find is that it's even because it's not just about sex, or it's very little about sex, and it's about touch, which is something you can have with so many different people. It doesn't need to be just your partner. That's one of the issues, I think, that it's been so put into boxes, like
Yeah, like
touch this.
reserved for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This is like, you can only have it with like your partner, maybe your kids up till a certain age, but then that can get weird too. Like it's just like a certain age you're allowed to hug them, and then you can have it with your pets, which is why pets are great. You're actually allowed to touch them, and receive their touch of you. But then there are, like in between friends, there's a certain, you can, but there's often very strict boundaries of where that would go too far. So because touch has been put in these like boxes, you don't really get a chance to explore what it is for you outside those specific interaction with those specific people. The one time I think that we do use touch is when, if somebody is sad, you will nearly automatically put your hand over their hand and go, hey, and it's because we know that it helps. We know that it releases hormones of relaxation and healing when we touch somebody. We already know that. And when the kid falls, we usually tend to put our hand on where they've fallen, or blow on it. It's a way of touching, again, because somewhere we know. And like if you're attracted to somebody, but even before you have anything else, you kind of want to sit close to them. You want to hang with them, because that touch thing is a way of interacting. It's a way of flirting, way more than talking. Just like accidentally putting your hand close to their hand, even that creates something. So touch is so powerful, and we so rarely get to explore it. And once you have more ease with it, you'll actually have more ease with so many things in life. Because it's not just about touching in these particular boxes. It's any kind of touch that you could add to your life, that you could have more fun with in your life, but also that you could really explore that you may never have considered before.
Yeah, I want that, all of that. Have that.
And it is interesting how in all these classes that I've done, the 1-day ones and the 2-day ones, like how much people, like through the class, once we start like playing with it, we start doing practices, they like discover areas where they have so much conclusion and limitations in place that they're not even aware of until we do a practice. Because what the practices does is like bypasses all the kind of like blinders that we already put on, because it becomes blinders when we decide something and it becomes like a presumptive reality. We just presume that's how it is. That's how it's always been. That's how it should always be. It's not even something we question anymore. It's not something we like, even there's no sense that this could be different. So by playing with it, by doing practices, you bypass that cognitive limitation that you put in there that you don't even think about anymore, because maybe you did it as a kid, or maybe you did it as a teenager, or maybe you learned it from your mother and you don't know where it came from. But by doing that, things will come up because you're breaking the autonomy. Touch is one of those things where you can't keep this autonomy. Is where you create this, like, this is me. This is me. I'm like autonomous being, and nothing that doesn't fit in there can come in, but touch goes through.
Mm.
You can't keep that autonomous, defined, concluded you in place with touch. And that's also, I think, why it sometimes provokes people so much, and why people think they are a little bit afraid to explore it, because it will get in there. You can't get away. It's like you can't keep your autonomous definition and personality in place.
Sounds like fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Yeah, and we will. And so we are actually going to explore this, and you're going to be there. We're going to explore it.
Yeah.
I have 3 Art of Touch classes coming up. So I have one in Croatia, in Zagreb, Croatia, at the very end of June. And that, so that's the 29th of June, I think.
30th of June.
Oh, 30th of June. Don't come the 29th. It's the 30th of
You
June
can
in
come,
Zagreb,
Katarina, and be
Croatia.
prepared for it.
And then if you watch this and you live in India, I'm also going to do Art of Touch classes in India in August. And I'm also heading to Barcelona in Spain at the very end of August. So, and why not come and start playing in June in Zagreb? Then you get to meet Katarina. Oh, we're both Katarina. Then you get to meet Katarina times 2. Yes. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you for this amazing conversation. It was a real download of all these energies that these classes and that you are, that I adore. So yes, we
Thank you.
invite you all. Come to Zagreb, or if not, you can go to India and Barcelona as well.
Or come
And
to all of them and
yes,
play.
come to all of them and play with us. Well, thank you so much, Katarina. And we'll post maybe a listing for these classes on your Facebook page, so
Yeah,
you
we'll
can see.
post
Yeah.
right under this video. You will be able to find a link to all the different classes, and then you can come and explore and see if this is for you.
Yay.
Okay,
Thank you
thank you,
so much.
everyone.
Bye.